It's not going to be a very good look for Rishi Sunak if he goes potentially into a general election. And bear in mind, a lot of people are saying today, possibly tomorrow, could be a general election. That we could get that announcement now that the budget has been done. Of course, I'm doing this before the budget, so I'm not 100% sure what's in the budget. We'll probably do a video about that tomorrow. But yes, going to be interesting. But budgets for local councils have been ever under more increases, starting, of course, with austerity, with the government telling you've got to do more with less, with increasing costs of social care rising, and the problem of being told to, well, do more with less, that's a bit of a problem. Then the loss of the EU funds that a lot of councils had access to, those are now gone. And you've got the rising cost of inflation making services that councils used to do or they used to provide even more expensive. So this is something that has been warning about on this channel for well over a year, of councils either running up against the line or on the line about warning about bankruptcy. Birmingham, the biggest, one of the biggest local authorities in the UK, has gone bankrupt. It's not a good look for Rishi Sunak potentially going into a general election. And he can try and blame it on, it's the Labour administration, etc., etc. But remember, at the end of the day, it was his government for the past 15 years, 14 years at this point, saying, yeah, we're just going to, reduce your budget. It's not exactly, shall we say, the best of looks, but there are lots of problems going on in different councils, facing different problems. And, the other big problem for Birmingham City Council was they had a lot of legal costs to pay as well. That did not, help them in that. They even asked the government, can you help us pay these? The government refused. I highly suspect if it had been a Conservative council, that might have been a different story, but there you go. So we're going to go digging more into this to find out what they've done, because they have done some of the biggest budget cuts in local authority history. And this, unfortunately, will lead to job losses in Birmingham Council, as well as a reduction in services. So let's find out more about what's going on in Birmingham. So before we do go on into this, please do click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, down below there's the link to the Pony Club as well. And of course, 'tis Wednesday, so do remember to go check out the Pony Club video if you are again a member of the Pony Club. Again, link down below, or you are a member of the Patreon as well. So let's go check this out. So this comes The Guardian reporting on this. Birmingham Council approves biggest budget cuts in local authority history. So councillors in Birmingham have now approved what are thought to be the biggest budget cuts in local authority history, with residents warning that the consequences could be disastrous for the city. Bear in mind, you'd think that if this was going to be the case, maybe the government would do something, maybe it would, do something, help in some way, shape, or form, but it's doing absolutely nothing. And I have to wonder how different they would be acting if Birmingham was, a conservative run council. I can only think to the ways that they might literally be bending over backwards trying to help Birmingham out. So Birmingham City Council met on Tuesday afternoon to debate and vote on a proposed set of cuts that would see the loss of up to 600 council jobs. Could have been a lot worse. Don't get me wrong, 600's a lot of jobs to lose, but it could have been a lot worse. Arts grants scrapped. I think that is going to be disastrous, I think, for the city. I think these types of grants do a lot of good. And just to see that scrapped completely, that's a big loss for Birmingham and for artists in Birmingham in general. Libraries closed and bin collections reduced to fortnightly. They've also now included funding cuts to adult social care, children's services, flood defences, and highway maintenance, while streetlights across the city will be dimmed. And we talked about that very recently, about the problems that dimming of the streetlights will bring to this problem. So a lot of problems, a lot of services heavily, heavily cut. And of course, to no surprise, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a post on Conservative Home either today or there might have been one recently that I might have missed from a Conservative saying, "Oh, all this could have been avoided. You don't understand. It's just the Labour Council being awful, being terrible." I'd love to actually know what their response to with this been. If they had been in charge, if this had been a Conservative council run, how much like the Conservative central government would have tried to go and help this the Birmingham City Council. So back to it. So the Labour-run council also approved a 10% tax increase, council tax increase for the upcoming financial year, after being granted special permission for the government to increase the rate above the national cap on account of the council declaring itself effectively bankrupt back in September. Addressing the council chamber at the start of the very heated 5-hour debate, the leader, John Cotton, said that he unreservedly apologized to the people of the city for the unprecedented scale of cuts, saying, "I'm under no illusion what this budget will mean for our communities," he said. "These decisions we make here today will have a lasting impact on every single neighborhood in Birmingham, and that weighs heavily on me." Cotton said he took responsibility for the Birmingham-specific problems and urged the government to launch an independent inquiry into what went wrong in the council. That would be good. I think I'd be very for that. I would like to see an independent inquiry look into this, because it's something that does need to be, I think, looked at, where this went wrong. This then could make recommendations of how to improve these things, how to stop this type of things happening in the future. So I would be very, very much for an independent inquiry. I'm really glad that he is taking he's taking responsibility for Birmingham specific problems, and that he is calling for an independent inquiry. I think that is something that should be lauded, taking responsibility for that. But anyway, but he also blamed the, quote, forest fire raging through local government, and asked, who is going to apologize for the prolonged Conservative-led neglect that has brought down so many councils to the brink? Nearly 1 in 5 council leaders in England said that they are likely to declare bankruptcy in the next 15 months. As we said, this isn't a good look for Rishi Sunak going into a general election. Robert Alden, the leader of the opposition Conservative group in Birmingham, said that the council were, quote, making the biggest ever cuts to services for Labour's biggest ever council failure. Trying to, I think, pin it on Labour in particular is, I think, very unfair, because I've said wonder many times we've gone over the crowing of like local Conservative councillors who have narrowly managed to hang on to like one seat. They aren't really proposing better solutions or anything like that, at least from what we can see of this. They're just going, well, this is why you don't elect a Labour council. There are other Conservative councils that are in exactly the same states. But there you go. And I think it's more just the external problems by the national government, not the local governments, that have put the problems on this, as well as the external pressures that they're facing. Inflation is a big thing that is pushing a lot of these councils to the brink. The fact that the funding that they used to get received from the EU has not been replaced, and they're now having to literally compete against each other and then spend money to try and get money that they potentially might not get. Again, it's a ridiculous system that these guys have gotten into. Anyway, he continued saying that Labour hope residents will believe them when they claim that this wasn't their fault. He said, alleging that the council ignored warnings about the state of the city's finances. Residents across Birmingham have now raised the alarm at the impact the cuts could have on their local communities, particularly in youth services, libraries, arts organisations, and charities supporting vulnerable people. One person saying, "I think this could be potentially disastrous for the city," said Lawrence Barton, a business owner and a director of Birmingham Pride, which has said its councils, which is now seen its council sponsorship scrapped, saying these cuts feel very monumental. The people in the city are reeling over it. I've had businesses in the city now for over 25 years, and it's never felt so bleak. The full council meeting was well underway. Dozens of protesters from unions and community groups gathered outside the building chanting no to cuts. And I sympathize with all those protesters, but there comes a point where sometimes you're going to go, well, what can we do? You know, don't just say no to cuts. Look at how you can be doing this. I think the protesters should have found a way to put forward an alternative to cuts. And I think that would have been a lot more effective. But I do sympathize with them chanting that. I do get that. Birmingham City Council issued notices of a Section 114 notice, effectively declaring bankruptcy itself back in September, with an estimated over £300 million of savings needed to balance the books. It was largely attributed to a £100 million bill to try and fix a failed installation of a new IT system and a £700 million liability for equal pay claims. But councillors have also blamed the national government for its cuts at a time of increased demand for services. And again, same thing. I think, when you get these, when your government is constantly cutting things, when you have these, a 100 million bill for failed installation of an IT system, unexpected cost, 700 million from equal pay claims. These are all unexpected costs they did not think they were going to have to pay, and it came along. Bear in mind what has been the continuing story throughout all this austerity, that if someone suddenly got a bill for like £400, most people would not be able to pay it. And that, to a lot of people, could be, well, what if they went across a pothole and, not only did it take out the tire, it took out the suspension. It's the same, almost same. Well, it's not the same, but it's roughly almost in a couple of cases what we've been hearing for quite a long time for many people contending with austerity. So the meeting came just a day after councillors in Nottingham passed a range of sweeping budget cuts also on Monday night, with some people reduced to tears as they voted in favour of the proposals. Labour councillors at Nottingham said that they did not agree with the cuts, which included council redundancies, in reduced funding for local services and adult social care, and a review of libraries, but the intervention of government commissioners and the duty of care and the duty to create a legal budget had tied their hands. Dave McClellan, the leader of the Labour Council, told the meeting, "This is a day that will be remembered by our city for all the wrong reasons. I have to stand here to the record to say the fact I do not believe in this budget, but I am aware of the decision that we will have to make and we will have to implement it will last many years." One Labour councillor, Sharfin Udos, I hope that's oversight, who is also the Sheriff of Nottingham, has also been suspended from the party after she refused to vote in favour of the cuts. In a statement, the Labour Party said, "The council has a duty to set a legal and balanced budget, and we expect all Labour group members to support the proposals and set up responsible and legal budgets." And that is true. She can protest by not supporting it, but bear in mind, council's hands are tied here. They have to set a budget like that. They don't have a choice. That's what the government says that they have to do. Their hands are tied. You might not like it. You might not like being expelled because, you refuse to vote on it. But they are legally bound to create these budgets. So their hands are very, very much tied on that. They can't get out of it. And which is why they're having to do these things and make such sweeping cuts, because they've got no choice. They have to. They are legally required by the government to do so. And this is where you get now councillors who do not want to make, as it was said there in Birmingham and Nottingham, they do not want to make these decisions, but they have to. And this is why I've said, the protesters outside Birmingham can say, protest no to cuts all they want. and it's well within their right to do so, but they should have come up with other ways. Maybe they could do this, alternative plans. Maybe they could have done something else, which maybe would have led not to have cuts in another area. But hey, we'll see. So this is, I think, going to be a continuing story. I would not be surprised to see, as was said there by the leader of the Birmingham City Council, that this is going to affect the city for years to come, and communities throughout Birmingham for years to come. So yeah, a very sad day, I think, for Birmingham indeed, as well as Nottingham. Leeds is also in a very sort of similar position as well at the moment. So we'll see what happens, but I would not surprise me if more came along in the coming weeks. And like I say, this is not good for Rishi Sunak going to a general election, even if they are Labour-run councils. The national government ultimately really responsible. Austerity, very, very much responsible. They have not done anything to help these councils one bit. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.